It's that time again to bring back the highlights of the month, as I was doing all throughout last year, where I did a monthly roundup of the best releases that I personally heard from that month. Usually albums, of course I throw in EPs too, and I must friggin' remember to throw in the playlists that I have going, the ongoing playlist throughout the year of the best songs that I hear each month too. I sometimes forget to throw that in, but I must remember. Obviously music is a bit quieter in the early stages of the year, which is why I've been keeping up with that little mini series that I've got going on, with the highlighting some smaller unknown names, as you know, the year is a bit quieter and there's always some good releases too, and this video is filled with those smaller names as well, because obviously there's not been a huge amount of bigger names dropping music, but you're a fool if you think that music hasn't been good, because there's been some good stuff. I'm gonna start anyway with the Frazer album. Not the most original thing you'll hear in the world of soul music, certainly not anything of the sorts, but I do think it's actually pretty nice, and I like his falsetto that he reaches into across many of the tracks. His influences are really obvious. There's some really, you know, standard soul songwriting about love and heartbreak and all that kind of stuff. You've heard it all before, but I think actually Aaron does a pretty good job of making a really nice, well-produced release here. Then I want to mention Cameo Blush. Some really cool deep house stuff, techno stuff on this EP here. Only 3 tracks, but the 3 tracks really stick, and I am really gonna make sure I follow this guy, because I think this is a really strong release that is absolutely worth your time, and I just want to see where he goes next. There could be an album later in this year. I followed his social medias and stuff, so I'm hoping to see what we're going to get from him next, because again, some really good stuff on this EP. Next I want to mention Yusu, Yellow River Blue. Go watch my review. I only did that a few days ago actually. It was really worth talking about in full-length video, because it's some really lovely ambient music, some really cool textures as well coming through in the instrumentals, and of course her heritage is China, so she incorporates some traditional Chinese influences in some of the tracks. The opening track, particularly Shu, I think is a fantastic song, and I just think it's a really cool blend of worlds coming together on this album, so I think you should be checking it out. Also MoMa Ready, another one I reviewed relatively recently, sort of a deja vu moment, because I discovered this guy in January last year, and a year later he's dropped more music under this name, Gallery S. Always a bit confused about what his actual name is, because it's Gallery S and MoMa Ready. I don't really know. The music is really good. Some great drum and bass stuff going on here. Not quite as good as the album from last year, but I still think it's admirable, and some really good tracks crop up on this one as well. More drum and bass next with Kessler, Ambivalent. Really bloody blown away by this EP. Not usually completely taken aback by EPs this early on in the year, but again, got to mention Josh here for putting me onto it, and many others too. It really finds good shit in drum and bass and electronic music, man, and this is the good shit right here. This is really one of a kind, I think, in that it just has this huge amount of power, this essence of power held in these instrumentals. There's this nocturnal vibe running throughout as well. It really just snaps the whole way through, and it's strangely labeled as an EP, even though the length is 41 minutes, but don't let that put you off, because it truly deserves your time. And yeah, there's nothing more to say. This is friggin' great. Actually, there is one last thing I do want to say. If you want a soundtrack to like a late night drive, and you are just in that kind of like lonely feel, and it's so dark, and you know, only you could really see the headlights and maybe the street lights or whatever, you play this album. It really hits that kind of feel to it, and yeah, I'm rambling on and on, not me even making sense anymore. It's great. And that leaves us with my album of the month. Always end off on my favorite release for the entire month, And it's a surprise, honestly. It's the follow-up album to Shame's debut, Drunk Pink Tank. Was super impressed with this, man. I think their approach to post-punk on this album is bloody great. It's not the most original thing in the genre, but it doesn't have to be when they're already establishing themselves as this band that carries a lot of weight to their instrumentals, their vocals. They are part of a long list, honestly, of bands in the rock genre in the UK at the moment that are really coming through and breaking through with a voice. And yet, sure, their influences again remain very clear, but I think there's a lot of talent coming out of the UK at the moment. You've got bands like Squid, you've got bands like Black Midi, Black Country New Road. This is another addition to that list. Shame, I didn't think they were there with the debut, but they certainly are with this follow-up album. Nigel Hitter, Water in the Well, Snow Day. Snow Day is the one, honestly, on this album. Wow, fantastic release here from this band. And yeah, easily my album of the month. And if you'd have told me at the start of January that this would end up being my album of the month by the end of the month, I probably would have said, nah, you're probably not right, are you? It's not going to be this. It's probably not going to be Shame. But it is. It's Shame. And I am super impressed with this release here. I think it's great. And I think if you're a fan of this genre overall, and you've been a fan of all the other post-punk bands over the past few years, Proto Martyr, anyone else like that, you would get something out of this. That's it for the January highlights. Hopefully you got something out of this video. Hopefully you check these releases out if you haven't heard any of them already. There's lots of great stuff here. I hope you go listen to it. And that's it. Obviously, I will make sure I link a playlist to the best songs of the month, and I'll have something along here somewhere of a picture of my favourite anyway, and I'll try and remember to link the playlist on Apple Music in the description somewhere. Tell me your favourite albums, EPs, songs of the past month, what you're looking forward to as well for the rest of the year, because, you know, January is always quiet, so there's more and more great stuff to come. So thank you for watching. Do have a good day. Subscribe, please, if you haven't already, and goodbye.